discuss. Daily Caller reporter Brianna Lyman. We're also joined by Antonio Swad, a congressional candidate looking to represent the 32nd congressional district in my home state of Texas. Hey guys, welcome to you both. Brianna, you first. Your latest piece for the Daily Caller, more New Yorkers are finally seeing just how corrupt AOC is and how she doesn't stand for her constituents. Do you think she's in trouble?
I think she's in trouble both in her district and nationally because AOC, the reason she's so popular is because Democratic socialists in places like California and parts of New York City love her. But all over the country, you have people who agree with her viewpoint, really liking her. But I don't think her constituents do. And Chris, I'm happy you opened up with that clip of her dancing because I think it shows just the slap in the face that was. She has constituents who take time out of their day to show up to a town hall to address their grievances, to let her know what's on their mind. And what is her reaction? She wants to dance and act like it's all a big joke. You know what? Sometimes you're going to have people who don't like what you've done. And her response should have been a lot more appropriate. It should have been, let me hear what you have to say. How can I address this? Rather than dancing and then having the lights turned off.
No. Well, you know, the New York Times probably says, look at her busting a move right there. She's perfectly qualified to represent districts in Texas, in Congress. Yeah. Antonio, speaking of AOC, she's on record saying if Texas adopted her Green New Deal, our power grid woes would all be fixed. Now, you and I both know that's patently absurd. But this is from the same woman who said in 2019, we only have 12 years left until doomsday. But the threat of a power grid failure, it is real. And government analyses say 90% of Americans could die if power grids fail in this country. Now, if you are elected, what will you do to make sure that funding is directed to hardening those grids in Texas and the East Coast and West Coast grids?
Well, I would be an advocate of spending our tax dollars here in America, shoring up all of our systems, our infrastructure, instead of sending $45 or $50 billion overseas to defend Ukraine. I think that money would be much better spent here in America. You know, the power grid is one of the areas that we are as a nation are most vulnerable. We need to look at re-engineering the entire grid, going with a microgrid system that would put more grids and less dependency on one large grid as we have it here in Texas. But we need to spend our money here at home. AOC is a total embarrassment. I had my 18-year-old daughter here with me earlier, and I made her watch that little video clip, and I asked her, I said, now look me in the eye, and you tell me that you would be happy if she was your representative in Washington. Look me in the eye and tell me, and she couldn't do it, and she's a huge fan of AOC.
Well, oh, wow. Wow, that's surprising. You know, I know a lot of 5-year-olds that would look at that and say, wow, that's irresponsible. But I'm just, Brianna, according to a New York Times Siena poll, 59% of registered voters see the media as a major threat to our democracy. Didn't the biased, unfair, and lazy mainstream press earn Americans' distrust, in your view?
Absolutely. And I think there's obviously way too many examples. You can obviously start with Hunter Biden's laptop being called disinformation. You think back to just the Trump era, right? We were told that Trump did nothing when Russia put bounties on U.S. soldiers' head. Months later, fake story. That he gassed protesters to take a photo op outside the church. Fake story. So for years, they peddled these fake claims and they've had no repercussions. So there's a big distrust in the media. And the reason that is such a threat to democracy, probably the only actual threat to democracy in the country right now, is because the media is one of the biggest ways to reach the American public. And when you're having them misled by people that they're supposed to trust to get their real news from, and they can't do that, they're going to make votes on false pretenses. And that will change the outcome of how the country's going to perform.
Narrative over news, that's what they are. Antonio,
Yep.
Last question. The FBI is out there right now rounding up nonviolent, pro-life protesters, yet they're looking the other way for those who have actually firebombed or committed violence against pregnancy centers throughout the United States. A new report says 22 pro-lifers have been indicted by Merrick Garland and Joe Biden's Injustice Department. Now, your midterm opponent, Colin Allred, is a rubber stamp, not standing once to demand equal justice for Americans. Antonio, if you get elected, how are you going to hold Biden's corrupt DOJ accountable?
Well, it's really a shame how we've allowed this administration to weaponize our Justice Department and turn it on good tax-paying citizens the way it's happened. One of the first things that I would like to see is a thorough investigation into the Biden White House and the activities son Hunter. But this isn't the first time we've seen unequal justice. We've seen it from the people that participated in January 6th. Many of them are still awaiting a court date, but we've seen justice turn the other way during the protests of the previous summer. So it's not the first time. I just hope people get tired of getting used to it and start sending different people to Washington, and only then can change really begin.
Well, amen to that. We've got to stop accepting this double standard in the justice system that, as I said, rubber stamped by your opponent. Brianna Lyman and Antonio Swad, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.